Want to know how I built this chart in Microsoft Excel? I'm going to show you how. Stay tuned on an all-new episode of Excel TV. Jordan Goldmeyer here. I'm here to talk to you about how to build this awesome dashboard right here. Now take a look at this, all right? If you don't want to miss Excel tips, awesome Excel news, even Excel jokes, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Also make sure to hit that bell. And also guess what? Excel TV has training courses. Here they are. Check them out. We got a discount code down below in the description. Check that out. Stay until the end because we're going to have the download files for you. Take a look how to build this awesome chart. We're going to do it in a few steps. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to pollingreport.com, one of my favorite polling data websites. You may use another site. I think another one people really like is Real Clear Politics. I'm going to show you where I got that data from. So I clicked on President Trump, and then I'm going to go here to where it says job ratings like that. Look, now isn't this awesome? We have the data that we want. So here's what I'm going to do. I have Excel over here. I want to get this data here into Excel. So if you remember in the old days, we would highlight and we'd have to hit copy and paste. Well, Excel's got some new options here. Let's go ahead and just start a new workbook. That's what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to go over to here where it says data like that. I'm going to click from web. And now it's going to ask for my website. So take a look at this. I know where I'm pulling it from. I'm going to go up here, pollingreport.com. I'm not going to even remember this, so I'm just going to hit Control-C to copy it right there. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back to Excel. We're going to paste this in right here. I hit Control-V to paste. I'll hit OK. Check this out. It's going to do a little magic. Then it's going to pop up and it's going to say, look, we found two different tables. One of these tables is just some document information, but this other one, table 0, is the one we are most interested. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click table 0 like that, and then I'm going to go hit edit. In this next step, I'm going to show you how to use Power Query to make the data exactly look like how we want. This is one of the most awesome things that Power Query allows us to do. First thing I'm going to do, and watch as I make changes, they're going to appear over here on the right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this column. I don't really care for that column. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm looking at this column right here. I don't really care about that one. I'm going to go ahead and hit remove on that one. Now I'm looking at this. I don't really care about these delta differences. So what I'm looking at here is going to be this, the approval less the disapproval. I'm sure that that is very interesting to some political scientists. I really couldn't care less. So I'm going to right click that. I'm going to go ahead and hit remove. Now, you know you could do this all in one movement by holding shift or control and selecting the columns you want, but we're going to slow it down just a little bit for us. So the next thing I want to do here is these first 3 rows. I really could care less about them, so I'll hold shift. I'll select one. Or excuse me, I don't want to do it that way. I'm just going to select this top one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here where it says remove rows. I can click remove top rows. It's going to say which rows do you want to remove, right? So I want to remove these first 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't really care about them, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK on those. The next thing I'm going to do here is under column 2, I am going to replace the name. Now, I could have done this a different way. I could have promoted some of the headers. I don't really want to do that because they were on different rows, as you recall, so I'm just going to do this the long form way. I'm going to go and replace each column with what I want it to be, so I'll type in poll name there. And over here, I know that this one is going to be the approval rating. So I'm just going to type in approve percentage like that. Go over here. I'm going to right click disapprove like that. Put in that percentage sign because I like it. Now over here, I have these date ranges, and this can get very confusing very easily. So what happens is maybe on a poll, they use a calling poll or they use an online poll, and it spans for a couple of days. I don't really want to get into that, how the different days come up with different results. So I'm going to try to bring it all together and say, if it happened during a month, I want it to be during this month. So what I'm going to do here is I want to split these up. So I'm going to hit split by delimiter. The first delimiter we want to split by is the slash, and we're going to use the leftmost slash, right? Because that's going to give us our month. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit leftmost slash. I put in this delimiter right there under custom. You see it's going to split it up, so that pulls our month out. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to split by the year. So in that case, I'm going to have custom right here. We're going to still keep it custom. I don't need to click on that. I'm going to use the slash again. We're going to do the rightmost one. Now again, you could do this in a quicker way, but I like stepping through it like this because it keeps my brain understanding what's going on, and hopefully you're following along too. Now that I've done that, I don't really need this column anymore. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to click remove column. Don't worry, it's keeping track of all of our actions over here. So if I ever have to go back, that's how I would do it. So now we know the month and now we know the year. So actually what I want to do is merge these two. So I'll hold shift there. I'm going to hold shift here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. This is my favorite way of doing it. I'm going to click merge columns, and you could just merge them together, but we want to add in a separator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit custom here. I'm going to type in a slash. Now if I did 5/19, Excel might not be smart enough to pick up that that's a year. I could probably do a few other things to make it work, but I'm just going to, I know that this works here, so I'm going to do /20. So when it does 5, it's going to do /20. It's going to add that 19 right there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this month, or let's just call it date, like that. I'm happy with that. I'll hit OK. So you see it brought it together. Now we have a few issues here, right? Our approval here is still in text format, so I'm going to go up here. I'm going to click decimal number. I'm fine with that. I could have clicked whole number, but it doesn't really matter here. I'm sure some people who are really on top of that would get annoyed with me for clicking decimal and not whole number, but I'm cool with it. So we're going to make this approval and disapproval like that. You see that they're now numbers, and over here under this type, I'm just going to click date, and it's going to be smart enough to pick it up. So you see that it's going to add a 1 in here. We're going to just say it's at the first of the month. I'm totally happy with that. You should be totally happy with that. Okay, so how do we end all of this? Well, before we do anything else, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this polling data under my source name, and then I'm going to click close and load to, like that, because I want to actually load it to a table. So I'm going to do that right here. I'll click OK, and that is going to be the end of our second step. Okay, so in this next step, what we want to do is go ahead and build our chart. Now, before I do that, one thing I really like to do is make sure that everything is well named, because I might use it later. So I know if I go into this table here and I click design, you see it's called polling underscore data. I don't really love that it uses an underscore, so I'm just going to hit delete on that. That's my own personal thing. But over here under sheet 2, I'm also going to type in, let's type in, instead of polling data, I'm going to type in back end data like that. Just going to remind me what's being stored there. And then over on sheet 1, I'm going to call that dashboard. So we want to create a chart like we did in the final version. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to click insert over here. I'm going to insert this scatter chart right here. I like to kind of do this by itself on its own, so not next to the table, and then add each one individually. Of course, there are faster ways to do this, but I think this really drives home how to do it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to select data, and I'm going to add a new series. I'm going to click backend data. We're going to add in the approval series right here. The X data here in our case is this date right here. So we're going to do the date range. I'm going to click the top of that, Control Shift down to highlight the whole thing. I'll hit OK. Oops, excuse me, I forgot to do one other thing, so I hit OK. Under my series Y values, I want to add in the approval data. Now, here's a way that everyone messes things up, where it says equals curly bracket 1 curly bracket. We're going to go ahead and hit delete on that. If you don't hit delete, you are asking for a life filled with headaches and misery. So make sure you hit delete, Control Shift down on that. That's going to highlight the whole thing. We'll hit OK like that. And then what we're going to do is I want to add in, you can see that it added in our approval data, right? I want to add in the disapproval data. We're going to do the same thing. What's our series name? We're going to go to the back end here. I'll just click anywhere in this table. The easiest way is I'll hit Control up. That's going to get us to the top of the table. That's going to give us our name right there, C1. Our X values, we should know those. That's going to be D2 through D275. Also remember to make sure you hit delete on whatever's in here, because if you don't, you are asking for a world of hurt. So what is our next set of data? We're going to do our disapprove. That's going to start with that C2, Control Shift down. That's going to give us to our 275 like that. And now look, we have our approval and our disapproval data. Okay, so in this next step, I am ready to do some formatting on this chart. So I'm looking at this right here. I don't really love how it looks starting out. First of all, we have all this information down below, all this unused white space. I really could care less about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this axis right here. I'll click Format Axis. And then where we have our minimum and our maximum, it looks like I don't hate our maximum, but our minimum is way too low. So I'm going to put in a 30 right here. You see that that's now fixed in. And then because I don't want this maximum to change as I start changing different things on this chart, I'm just going to retype it. And you can see here that now it's locked in. And we'll get to changing the other bounds here soon. And you're going to see why that's important. So the next thing is I don't really like how this is being portrayed here. I'm going to click down on this axis, and you see my Format Axis tab is still up. If you accidentally closed it, you can right-click. You can go to Format Axis in this step. And then what we're going to do here is I don't really care about anything that's happening before 11/26/2016, and I probably don't care about anything after 5/15/2019. So instead of looking for what this date is here, because you see that it's using a date serial type, actually in Excel I can just type it in, the one I'm interested in. So I'm going to type in 11/26/2016. I'll hit enter. You see it automatically sized for me. I'm going to go over here 5/15/2019. Now note, if you are using dynamic data, that would be another issue, but we're not going to deal with that at this point. So looking at this, we're going to follow what Edward Tuff has to say. So we're going to remove all chart junk. I don't need those lines right here. I don't need these lines right here. And you can see the chart doesn't look too bad, so I don't hate it. One of the other things is I want to start doing some formatting with it. So down here, I don't really care what these exact dates are. So let's see here. Let's go to Axis Options, and let's click Numbers down here. And then under Type, under Format Code, let's make this MMM-YY. Or maybe even, let's see if we get rid of that dash. I don't know if I love that dash in there. So I'll click Add, and you see that now it's November 16th, March 16th, September 16th. I think that we could probably do a little bit better than this, but we're going to keep it like this for now because I actually want to show you the functionality. I don't want to get too bogged down in the formatting of it because that could be its own video. Okay, so we have the approval ratings over here on the side. What I want to do here is I want to add a chart title. We're going to go to Design, click Add Chart Title. So chart title over here. We're going to do this above the chart like that. And I'm going to just move that over here, and I'm going to call it President Trump Job Approval versus Disapproval Ratings, like that. We'll try to move this over here. I have a font that I love. That font is Seago UI, so I'm going to click on that. We're going to make it that font. And then I'm going to do that for these other items over here. Try to do it as quickly as I can because I know you're watching. So we'll make that Seago. We're going to make this one down below Seago like that. Okay, then the other thing is I want to go here to Format. I like outlining this whole thing like that. So it kind of looks like that. And then I'm going to click into the chart area. I'm going to go to No Outline. And then I'm going to click onto this spreadsheet. I'm going to click Grid Lines like that. Or I'm going to click View, uncheck them. So now we have kind of a nice look, and maybe I'll give myself some space over here like so. One last thing we need to add here before I forget, we got to add that chart legend. So I'm going to click Design. I'm going to click Add Chart Legend like this. So I'm going to add it to the top, and we're going to make it look like this. Okay. So this looks pretty good. We want to add in some functionality, don't we? And we also might want to add in a trend line. So let's see here. I'm going to click into here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to click Add Trend Line. It usually adds this dash trend line like this. I don't really love that dash trend line, so we're going to go to Format real quick. We're going to make that not dashed like so. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add in this dashed trend line here, but we're going to undash it. And you can see, and one thing to notice here as I go through this is we took that data and we turned it into months that was over days. So we kind of lost some cyclicity and some noise that may have been important in the data. We've created our own sort of trend. So don't get too caught up on the trend line here. It gives us an idea, but it may not be the whole story because of the type of data massaging that we did. We don't actually need this trend line here. So I'm going to go ahead and click, or we don't need that in the legend, so I'm going to go click it. If you click it twice, it's going to highlight it, and you see it gets rid of it. Okay, so what are other things we can do? Well, one other thing we can do here is I don't want this to be how this is filled. I'm going to go here and go to Fill. So I right-clicked it, clicked Format Series, where it's a solid fill. I'm going to change this transparency to 70%. You can see it like that. I'm going to go do the same thing here. What this tells us, and I haven't decided whether I think it's an important thing to tell us yet, but if I go to 75%, it does tell us that multiple polls came up with very similar pieces of information. Now you can see here I made that 75%, and the fill here, this is one of the most annoying things. When I made this, gave this a fill color, right? this marker, it gave it the same fill color as like the other chart. So what I want to do is actually make it the same fill color as this line here. Okay, so this gives us an idea of which days came up with very similar. So, you know, one way we can think about this is that this is almost like this approval rating was fairly consistent for September, even though it may have happened in different days. But you get the idea here. Okay, so what if you wanted to just see what news organizations gave what approval ratings? Because maybe you wanted to do that type of investigation. And how the heck would you do that? Well, one way is we can add a slicer in here. In this next step, I'm going to add a slicer that's going to allow us to understand which news organizations this data represents. So we did that in the original, or I should say I did that in the original. I'm going to click on it here. You can see how it's pulling up this information. And let's go click on one that has a lot like that, right? So this is kind of cool. It highlights which of these we're pulling the data from. And you could see how those trends differ. So if I pull from Quinnipiac, you could see that actually this doesn't show as strong a trend as, let's say, the NBC Wall Street Journal poll. Okay, so how did I do that? So we did it using a slicer. And the way I'm going to do that here is I'm going to go to our backend data like this, right? So I'm going to click Insert Slicer. So I'll click Insert. You can see a slicer's right here. It's going to ask us, what are we most interested in? I'm going to click the poll name like that. It's going to pull up this slicer. I'll hit Control X on this just to pull it from here, and I'm going to bring it over here, and we're going to show you that it works, but it's going to be missing a few things. So look, this works, but it's missing the context of the data behind it like I had before, right? But thankfully, because I locked in, if I hadn't locked in this axis here, it would be resizing each time as well. And then the other thing it's missing is it doesn't tell me how many of these items, you know, I'm just clicking on these willy-nilly. So I know ABC Washington Post has a lot. If I click on CBS, CBS has a lot. I click on Bloomberg, Bloomberg only has one. Well, that doesn't really help us. Like, what if I wanted to know, let's say, what if I wanted to know how many were in each one? So here's what I got to do. And this is where using a table becomes really important. So what I'm going to do here is I'll unclear everything like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new column. We're going to call it poll name. And then we're going to do count. Or you can just, if you wanted to, you could put a pound sign right in there. So what I want to do is know how many times Marist appears on here. So we'll do a count if right here. We're going to use the structured references of a table. So I can go over here and hit Control Shift down. You see it pulls up poll name, which is the whole name of the table. I hit comma right there. If I go back up, I can just see, I can click Marist. So what this is going to do is count how many times Marist appears within, right? So I do that, you see it appears 26 times, and then what I could do here is using that information, I'll click Marist like that, so that's going to give us the name of the poll, and then I'll do quotation mark, space, open parenthesis, I'll use the concatenation operator to chain this together, and then I'll do open or ampersand, then I'll do close parenthesis like that. You see now it's built the caption that we're most interested in. So then let's go here where it says poll name. We're going to hit delete on that slicer, right? And then what I can do is I can insert a new slicer that's going to use this new captioned element. So we'll do that. We'll click this here. This is going to tell us how many items we have here. I'll hit Control X on that right there. I'll hit Control V. You see it pulls up the poll name like this. Isn't that cool? And what I can do is I can start doing some formatting here. So what I did on my other slicer is I made it 2 columns like that. I got rid of the table heading, so I'll click slicer settings here. I'll click off display title. Now I don't really love these colors here, so this is really an exercise in self-loathing what I'm about to do, right? But if I wanted to format this, what I could do is I can create a new slicer style, and I hate doing this, all right, because it's going to start with a clear one. But what I'll do is I'll click whole slicer. I don't want that border, so I'm going to click outline is none on that. Now if I stopped here, everything else is going to be none. So I got to go in here and I got to format these one by one. So we're going to make this actually super quick. What I'll do is I'm going to make the border, we're going to make the border kind of red. I really like that idea because it shows that I've selected it, right? And so also maybe on the fill we'll make this kind of peach like that. So that means I've selected it, and then perhaps items, the hover of the unselected items like that, we can go to format. We're going to make that border just red like that. Oh, I got to click this again. We're going to make it red like that. I'll hit OK. And then if I hover over a selected item with data, I don't really care what that looks like, so I'll hit OK. And then what I got to do is I got to select this to the format I want. Now you see that I've done it over all of them. Or actually, maybe what I want to do is I'm going to just do this really quick. I almost feel like apologizing for taking so long. If I hover over a selected item with data, I definitely want it to be, I want it to fill with red like that. And, you know, it doesn't really matter to me. We'll make the border like that. I'll hit OK. You can see, so if I just want to select one, it's going to look like that. Okay, so this gives us our selection. We like that, but it doesn't show us the really awesome sort of background, that the context that the other one gave us, right? So I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to select these all right here just to bring them all back. So how do I get this background that I'm showing in here? Let's take a look in the next step. Okay, so in this final step, we're going to show you how to build that gray background that's going to show you as you start filtering on these. It's going to still show you the background so you can really understand everything you're looking at. So how did we do that? Well, what we're going to have to do is just sort of recreate that data on the back end. So note that as I change a slicer, it's actually affecting the filter on this table. So we can't use that same table if we want to keep going, right? So the easiest way to do this is the way I would do it, is I'll hold Control-Shift down. I'm going to create a new worksheet, and I'll call this dynamic data like that. I'll go ahead and hit Control-V. That's going to paste a new table in. I don't actually care about columns B and A, do I? I only care about columns A and B. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to our dashboard. I'm going to right-click in here. I'll click Select Data. So I'm going to click Add. I'm going to call this Approve Static, like that. Under X values, I'm going to go to the back-end data. Or excuse me, I'm going to go to the dynamic data, right? And I'm going to select the date right here. And then remember, whenever you're adding Y values, you always, always, always get rid of that =1 curly bracket. I'll hit OK on that. That's going to add in our approval, our static ones. I'm going to click Add one more time because we want to add in our disapprove static. I'm going to go over here to Series X. We'll go to dynamic data. We're going to do the same thing, right? So make sure we're going to start at the top, bring this all the way down. Under our Series Y values, we'll get rid of this hateful =1 curly bracket, and we'll hit Control-Shift down to highlight that whole thing right there. So you see our approval, our approved static and our disapprove static are here. Now look, what did this do? It put it on top of everything. So what we need to do is we need to bring it back. So I've highlighted that. We're going to take these and we're going to put them behind everything like that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly filter to a 1, right? So you see that it is highlighting this one here and highlighting that one there. What we want to do is make these sufficiently in the background. So we need to give it a color that really shows that it's a background color, right? So one of the things I might do is I might fill it with like a soft gray or something like that. Rather than actually do it from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and right-click this and click Format Data Series, and we're going to actually get into the marker options here. So I'll click on this paint bucket. I'll go to marker here. Under where it says fill, I'm going to click solid fill. We're going to make this a very light gray like that. And under border, we're going to just click no line. I'm going to click down here with this still open. Under solid fill, we're going to make it a very light fill. You saw that it kept it right there. I'll click no line right here. So it's just a little bit smaller. And look at that. It actually does a great job. Isn't that super duper cool? Now look, we don't really need this information right here. I'm going to go ahead and just click that. You can click on a legend twice, then you click on the item. Again, it's going to select that item. You can just hit delete. It'll get rid of it. What is the last thing we need? Well, how about some instructions? I'm going to go over here. We're going to click insert text box. We'll click over here. I'm going to click select news organization. People always want to know what to do. I'll make that Seago UI. Let's highlight that whole thing and make that Seago UI. Come on, Excel. We'll make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to go to format here. I don't need a shape outline. I don't need a fill like that. Now look, isn't that really cool? And let's see here. We'll do it like that. I'm going to make sure that's still Seago UI. If you wanted to, you could go in here. You could change the slicer settings to Seago. You know, let's see if I want to do that. Do I want to do that? No, I think we're going to end right here. That's what I think I want to do. All right, so take a look at this. Look how quickly we built this. Most of it was me just yapping on how you could build it. But look, once you've built this already, it's really awesome. And you can actually use this in your own work. If you wanted to look at different data sources, I chose something that I thought was really cool and really relevant, which is, we have a presidential election here in the US coming around the corner. But look, you could use this for any business case that you want. All right, everyone. That's how you build that kind of chart. Wasn't that awesome? Now look, if you want more awesome Excel content, what you need to do is check out this video. It's going to show you how to build an actuals versus budget chart in Excel. And I'm going to show you with the same sort of pace and passion with it. And also, if you want to become an awesome expert in Excel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out our classes. Sign up to our email list. We're going to give you some free stuff right away. I want to see you there. I want to see you in our other videos. Leave us our comments. Until next time, keep on excelling.